Hey everyone, Monarch of Dragons, coming at you live in this video, completely unscripted for the first time in a while, or at least not since earlier this year, and I was not planning on talking about Title Update 5 of Sunbreak this early. For context, I had just recently gone through Title Update 5. I had been sick the week it was dropped, and as such, I was not in the mood to live stream the game, to go through all the new content, and had to wait for the sickness I had to pass by before streaming the game again. Which I did eventually stream the game earlier this week on Monday, getting through Risen Shigaru and Amatsu, and since then I have been working on streaming down the time of the video, cutting down on the moments, and compiling the clips together. Essentially, the video is in early production. It's going to come out, but it's going to take a little bit. It's going to require a lot more time for me to cut through all 10 hours of live stream footage, compile it together, get the edits in, all of that and more. And as I've been working on this video, I've been brewing ideas for yet another future video. Something that I thought I could do after I release a planned video I talked about in the previous update video. However, Monster Hunter had to ruin my plan by creating some new drama within the community. And while I could just ignore this and move along with my day, continue trimming down the stream and talking about this issue another day, we know how YouTube is. You gotta get on that topic the quickest you can be to get all the attention and views, and more importantly, this has kind of evolved into its own separate issue. So, fuck it. I'm talking about it here and now, and I'm scrapping that original idea entirely. So today, we are going to be talking about why people are mad about Title Update 5's story, and more importantly, information in Monster Hunter. So, what's the big issue people are having on Twitter today? What's the big drama? Well, earlier this Wednesday at 4:30 AM, the official Monster Hunter Twitter account tweeted this following post. Quote, "I want to show everyone this image. Hopefully, I will be able to talk about it in more detail at another time, outside of social media. Suzuki, #Sunbreak Director." End quote. And following up from this line of text, we see an image of an unmasked Kagero holding up an infant Yamogi. Now, on the surface, there doesn't seem to be a lot to be mad at here. I mean, after all, it's just a harmless image, and the director of Sunbreak essentially saying, hey, look at this cool image we made for the game, I want to talk about this more in the future. You know, that's all fine, we've had things like this happen in the past. So why is it all of a sudden an issue now? Well, simply put, it has to deal with the context surrounding Title Update 5 of Sunbreak, and more importantly, the withholding of information officially within the game. Title Update 5 of Sunbreak, like with Iceborne, decides to take a more cinematic and story-based approach with its title monster, Amatsu. Essentially, the basic gist of the title update revolves around an Amatsu coming by the Infernal Springs, and Kagero reacting with fury. Kagero was once part of a Wyverian village that was destroyed by a rampaging Amatsu, and as he was forced to flee the village, he was given one final request by the queen, to take the infant princess and send her far away from the village, to find some place safe for the both of them to settle down in. That princess is Yamogi, and Kagero is basically really mad that the Amatsu has reappeared, and is now hell-bent on killing the Amatsu before it can destroy his second home. When we get into the quest, a cutscene plays in which Kagero is contemplating the idea of striking down the Amatsu, but before he can actually carry out the act, Yamogi appears behind him and basically says how thankful she is for everything he's done, for the life she's been given in Kimura, all of that. And this, as well as our hunter coming into the fray, distracts Kagero long enough for Amatsu to suddenly take notice and aim a pot shot at Kagero. and with his life flashing before his eyes, he decides to sacrifice his vengeance and protect Yomogi, breaking the sword he was wielding and unmasking him for the first time ever. From there on, the cutscene ends, and Kaguro tasks us with taking down the Amatsu. All in all, that's a pretty simple synopsis of the plot, and it seems about on par with what we were given on Fatalis in Iceborne. But again, the context here is with the information. Because this story, this revelation about Kaguro and Yomogi's origins, is not explicitly told in the game. The briefest hints and tidbits of this backstory can be found all the way back in Base Rise, with Fukushigi the Informant. For those who don't know, Fukushigi was an NPC in Kamura who you could find hiding behind a wall in your house, and his purpose in the game is to give lore. Every so often, upon completing a mileage in the village or hub, getting a new star rank, or clearing an urgent, Fukushigi will have some new information to tell you. One of these bits of information is about Yomogi and her origin. Fukushigi says that Yomogi is not certain of her origin, that she was brought in as a baby to Kamura by a Wyverian hunter, and since then has lived among the people and has grown up there. There's an air of exaltation and that there's a sense of nobility in all of that. These are just the barest hints, and once again, this information is dependent on progress within the game. So, if the player wasn't certain that Fukushigi even existed, much less that if they progress at a certain point in the story, in the village, or in the hub, that they can completely miss out on this information. And for the longest time, that's the only bit of information we've had on Yomogi and her lineage, and this is nothing new for Monster Hunter. The franchise is well known and has a staple at this point of throwing in extra bits of lore or character information just willy-nilly, oftentimes during certain points of a story, and that's been all fine, because after all, it's just been extra bits of information and lore building. But this isn't where it ends, for on September 30th of 2022 at 6 AM, the official Monster Hunter Twitter account tweeted a post detailing the 4th short story volume titled Dear Princess. This short story details a letter written by Kaguro about that fateful day, giving us more background on Yomogi, her origins, Kaguro and his village, and the untimely destruction it went through. The main takeaway people had from this post was that Amatsu was going to be in Sunbreak. Amatsu had to be planned. Amatsu must be the Fatalis equivalent of Sunbreak. It is for sure going to happen. It is going to be a title update monster, and sure enough, it was. And once again, there's not really a problem here with the post itself. There's nothing wrong with this independently. The problem starts to kick in, however, when you put all this together. A short bit of character information detailed in the base game, a bit of information that you can easily miss out on due to its time sensitivity, is eventually expanded upon with an outside game Twitter post detailing even more of that character's background, bringing in another character, and talking about a long-lost village and a monster that destroyed it, finally concluding and becoming the central point of Sunbreak's 5th title update. The main focal point, the main story on display here, with the same monster being brought in. And all of a sudden, Title Update 5 has to do the work of concluding a story arc, a mission and goal by a character that very few people would have noticed otherwise. In other words, they make a character and world-building bit of information essential story. Oof. And so, the post from earlier today was essentially the tipping point for a lot of people. You had famous figures in the Monster Hunter Twitter community like Ban Chris, Monster Hunter Jokes, and even Sephiroth and Asalon talking about this storytelling decision. Now hold on, some people might be saying. Didn't Fatalis do the exact same thing? Didn't Fatalis also tell a short story that was central to its title update, which similarly also included small bits of character information that were tucked away in dialogue boxes? Yes and no. Here's the thing. Yes, there were small bits of information from World and Iceborne regarding Aiden and Fatalis and whatever else that was tucked away in dialogue boxes that might have been situational or time-based. However, the whole of Fatalis and the title update surrounding him has a different context and circumstance. Fatalis isn't just any regular monster. To cut a long conversation short, because this is exactly what I'm going to talk about in a future video, Fatalis is more than just a simple monster. He's an icon, a legend within the monster community and world. He's the boogeyman we've all grown up with one way or another since Monster Hunter 1. Whether we be an old-timer from the very first game where he was an utter secret, or later down the line where all people hear is hearsay, rumor, and speculation about Fatalis and his capabilities, about his place in the monster world as its primordial god essentially, as its divine avatar, a symbol of retribution, judgment made manifest. I mean, after all, it dominated and took over an entire kingdom, the kingdom of Shrade, and then there was all that speculation and theory crafting that turned out to be false about the equal dragon weapon, the ancient dragon war, the ancient civilization, Castle Shrade, its demise, all of that. You get the gist. Even if some of that information since then has been false and just chalked up to speculation, Fatalis and Iceborne is an event. It was a monster that, by all accounts, wasn't supposed to happen, and yet it did, reimagining a mythical monster, both in the context of the game community, our perception of it, what we view as Fatalis, and his place as a legend in the game world for the characters, what he means to Shrade as a children's bedtime story, all of that. And we got expanded lore and details around him. The story and game not only did the most with what little time they had to develop Fatalis and his lore, but also due to the unique circumstance and place Fatalis has in the lore and in the community, he has an advantage in all of this. He is not subject to the same rules as we are here. Title Update 5 of Sunbreak, on the other hand, with Amatsu, Yomogi, Kagero, and all of that, is once again hidden behind information that very few people are going to find out, and it wasn't even important at first. It was again small bits of character lore and development that is nothing more than an extra secret. It's essentially an appetizer, like, oh hey, that's neat, that adds a little bit more to the character. But the more they pressed on it, the more they expanded upon it, and the moment it became the central focus of Title Update 5, it was doomed, because then it became important. Suddenly, this obscure bit of information that is time sensitive, that is locked away in a Twitter post outside of the game's information, suddenly became important to understanding. Suddenly, you had to know the whole deal with Kagero, Yomogi, Amatsu, the destroyed village, all of that. Suddenly, Title Update 5 was tasked with the goal of ending off this abrupt arc and character moment of Kagero. It was doomed from the start, because it would not have enough time to develop the story would feel out of place, too abrupt for people who didn't know, and even for people who knew, for people who saw those bits of information, who saw the Twitter post. It was still information that was locked outside of the game, and the information we did have in the game, again, missable. And the reason why I think this is all of a sudden a big deal for people is that this is mainly the tipping point of a long persisting problem in the Monster Hunter community and with the games. This isn't new, once again. The games have done this before. The games have told information about characters in the world in extraneous dialogue boxes and item descriptions and things people will miss, and it will tell information about the world, sometimes crucial information about the guild, its hierarchy, guild knights, hunting policy, the philosophies of the guild, the districts of it, monster ecology, habitat information, the people, the civilizations, and the cultures that live there in random art books that people will not know about, that people will be out of the loop for when you bring up actual information about, say, Nergigante asexually reproducing thrombose spikes. People won't know because, oh hey, information like that is tucked away in outside material, in extraneous lore and art books. And sometimes said art books, said crucial information to understanding the world of Monster Hunter is locked away in books and material that is never translated and never released outside of Japan. This is the struggle that the monster community has been persisting with for the past decade and a half, for the past 2 decades almost. The fact that almost all of the information, most of the information people share and gossip around on the internet is speculation. It's not even true. It's false more often than not. Most of the information, the facts that actually pertain to the world, the monsters, the ecology, all of that, art books. Art books that nobody knows about, that is never translated, never released outside of Japan. And if you want to know that information, tough luck, you have to buy it. And God forbid it's never been translated, because then you have to find someone or have the knowledge to officially translate it, especially if that material will never come out in the West. This is the ordeal we are having to face even now with the Dive to Iceborne book, with the Dive to Rise book, and most likely with the information and lore book that's probably going to drop when Sunbreak is all wrapped up in the near future. This is the ordeal that people like Ban Lagiacris and Oceanus has to deal with, when we aren't even fucking sure about how the world works, about where everything is in proximity to one another, where every village is located, where regions are, where hunting grounds are. I have my complaints about Title Update 5 story, as I've already explained, especially in regards to the comparisons between Fatalis and how it's a bit of obscure information suddenly becoming important, information that you can easily miss out on, and not to mention the fact that it had to wrap all of us up, it had to move very quickly, it didn't have a lot of time to develop or tell the people about it. But this is all merely the tip of the iceberg, and Monster Hunter needs to stop with this. It is no longer that one Capcom franchise that's popular in Japan and you might have heard of elsewhere in the world from that one friend. It is now a global giant racking in millions upon millions of copies sold. World and Rise getting into the top 10 of all-time platinum sellers for Capcom. Monster Hunter is officially moving into even more merchandise, tie-in games, mobile games even, with Niantic and Tencent. It is no longer a niche franchise, it is a big deal. And as more people flood into the franchise, as more speculation and hearsay spreads, misinformation begins. It starts up again, it grows bigger and bigger until it gets to the point where we can't tell anymore what's real or what's fake. And this goes doubly so, oh my god, for Frontier. Oh, poor Frontier. There is not enough time in this video. I need to end this video soon, but Frontier especially fell victim to this. That's all I'm going to say. Information within Monster Hunter should be more readily accessible. We should have this stuff in the game. We should have this be a part of the story. We should know more about the world. We should know more about the ecology. We should know more about the cultures. But we're still basically at the same place we were 10 years ago, or even 5 years ago, generally speaking. But that's about all I can say about this topic without rambling even further and prolonging this video. What do you guys think? Do you think I'm making a mountain out of a molehill with this whole topic? Do you think that people are just being dramatic babies about the Twitter posts and the information with Title Update 5 and its story? Or do you think that there is a valid point being raised here? Do you think that there is an actual concern in terms of Monster Hunter information, storytelling, and its accessibility? Do you think that something needs to change sooner rather than later? Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below, and as always, thank you guys for watching. Hope you all enjoyed. Like, comment, subscribe, all of that, blah blah blah. You get the gist. I have been the Monarch of Dragons, and I hope you all have a fantastic day / night wherever you live. Peace and Kulus Vault.